worth over $1 million, and I don't say that to brag. I say that just to show people like what the opportunity is and and what the possibilities are. So I help other people to kind of experience that same freedom today with their finances. It's not necessarily about working harder as it is just making a few changes, being a little bit smarter. So that's what I help people today one-on-one with.
That's really amazing thing. So, what's the most common mistake you see people doing in their finance?
The most common mistake I would say is people just don't know where their money is. Half
Right.
the people, I've seen statistics that say 50% of people have no idea where their money goes. So when
Okay.
we actually do, say, a budget or try to figure out like where, if you imagine like this boat and
Mm-hmm.
it's got all these holes in it, it's leaking somewhere. That's
Mm.
oftentimes what people's financial life looks like. That it's just
Right.
they have no idea where these leaks are coming from or where their money's going. And so helping to
Right.
kind of plug some of those leaks in the boat
Mhm.
changes everything.
Right. So, according to you, what exactly is the financial freedom?
Financial freedom is just not having to trade your time for
Hmm.
money. So if
Right.
you're working in a job where it's say $50 an hour,
Right.
you no longer have to work you don't have to spend your time
Mhm.
working to get money
Okay.
versus you actually have enough investments that are on the side that
Right.
are making you income, whether it's through stocks or real estate, dividends, that you no longer have to work. Your investments actually are outpacing your expenses. So
Okay.
if you have $5,000 a month in
Hmm.
expenses,
Hmm.
but you've got 10,000 a month coming in from your investments,
Right.
well, your investments are covering your expenses, so you're
Expenses.
work
Right.
optional. That's
Right.
my definition of financial freedom or financial independence.
Right, because a lot of people talk about like the one specific number. Like for some people, it is like $700,000. For some people, it is like $1 million. And after they have that number, they will be like, yeah, I don't want to work anymore. So that's
Yeah.
not it, right? Like you need to have the investment as much as you can cover your expenses. So let's suppose the normal life, like you have your family and you got to take care of your family, then how much number you're looking at, how much number you should be earning from anything like investments or stocks, and which one will you like recommend the normal people to do?
Yeah, so there's an easy way to actually figure this out. It's
Hmm.
based on this rule. It's called the 4% rule. And
Okay.
it's invented by this guy named
Hmm.
William Bangan. He was a financial planner. He came up with this in 1994. It's called the 4% rule. And
Hmm.
basically what it is if you can live off of 4% of your investments, let's say, for example, if you save up and you've got $1 million invested, what he's saying is a safe withdrawal rate is going to be about 4% of that. So if you
Hmm.
can, 4% of $1 million is $40,000. If
Okay.
you can live off of $40,000 a year,
Hmm.
then that money will grow forever. Like you almost don't have to worry about it. Oops,
Okay.
sorry.
Even, yeah, it's all right. So even
So
if the inflation and all things are going on, we don't have to worry about it, anything else.
it factors in inflation.
All
Factors
right.
in inflation. So, for example, I mean, if you could live off of um, $30,000 a year,
Mm-hmm.
then that would mean that you would need. Let's see, how much is that? 30. That you would need $750,000.
Okay.
So if you get up to $750,000 and you
Mm-hmm.
could tell me I could live comfortably off of $30,000 a year, then you're financially free.
Oh,
It
I
so it
now I see
factors
where
in.
the number comes from. Okay.
So easy way to figure this out
Mm-hmm.
is take whatever your yearly expenses are. If it's
Okay.
$100,000 a year,
All right.
you multiply that. Here's the key. You
Mm-hmm.
multiply it by 25.
25. Okay.
So if your yearly expenses are 100,000, that
Mm-hmm.
means you need 2.5 million. That's the number you're shooting for.
Right. So normally, most of the people are like having the full-time jobs, and they are going to be earning something around like $70,000 per year to
Yep.
something around like 150. So what will you advise to those people?
Yeah, you gotta sit down and figure out how much am I saving?
Hmm.
How much am I putting away? You gotta
Right,
figure out like you need to prioritize your future self.
right.
And by doing so, what that means is like you're setting aside money every month for investing.
Hmm.
You're taking care of your future self before you're paying yourself your future self before you're paying yourself today. Most people
Okay.
just take advantage or they'll take that money, they'll take the 70 or $100,000 and they'll just blow it
Right.
wherever. And then their future self suffers because of that. So
Okay.
they need to figure out where they want to go
Hmm.
and how much they need to get there
Okay.
before they do anything else, before they go
Right.
spend it today and just blow it.
All right. Let's have this thought experiment. Let's suppose I'm earning $70,000 per year,
Hmm.
and I can live with like $33,000 with my like minimal expenses.
Okay.
Then what do you recommend me to invest my rest of the money in? I should just have that money in savings account, or I should invest in some stock market, or what should I do with that?
Yeah. So one thing that I don't do is I don't sell investments and I don't sell insurance. I only
Mm-hmm.
help to educate people
Mm-hmm.
around different investment options.
Right.
So where we've put our money has been the stock market, but it could be real estate for
Mm,
you. It depends on what your goals are, like I said.
right. Okay.
And
Right.
so yeah, if you're looking into something like the stock market, you're talking
Right.
you've got mutual funds, you've got index funds, you
Right.
do have your a high yield savings account, but
Right.
oftentimes those barely, if at all,
Mm-hmm.
outpace inflation. So knowing where to put it is
Mm-hmm.
half the battle, and that's what I help people walk through. But it's
Right.
totally situational dependent. Um,
Completely right.
but
So how do you, right.
if you got $70,000 and it only takes 30,000 to live, you
Mm-hmm.
got $40,000 to invest or do something with.
Right.
It just depends on the person, but that's what I
Completely.
help to solve.
Completely right. Yeah. So how do you recommend balancing the short-term spending, like going on vacation with family, with long-term saving goals?
Oh man, I heard this quote the other day,
Uh-huh.
and I I was blown away. So this was a quote by somebody else. This is not me saying it, but at
Right.
20 years old,
Mm-hmm.
I would have given anything to be wealthy, and I chased wealth for the
Mm.
next 20 years.
Right.
At 40 years old, I was wealthy
Mm.
and I would have given it all away to get the health back that I had at age 20.
Right.
That blew me away because so many people
Completely.
like they do want to just focus on getting wealthy, where it's like you do have to prioritize
Your health.
family vacations and yep, and your health, and take advantage while you do have the health
Right.
to do some of the things that you're not going to be able to do at 40 years old. So there's definitely a balancing act, but I'm a huge proponent in just living life. It's not all about investments.
Right.
Money's not going to solve all your problems.
Completely agree with you on that. So what's your philosophy on building emergency fund? How much is enough and where should it be kept?
Depends on the person again, but usually as a rule of thumb,
Hmm.
3 to 6 months of expenses. So
Okay.
again, if you go back to if it takes $3,000 to live every single month, that covers the mortgage, it covers all your food, it covers your insurance, everything. Then
Mm.
you're looking to build an emergency fund of $9,000 to $18,000. That depends on factors like, is my job stable? Is it one or two incomes in the household? If you're single or if you're married, and but basically if you're more stable and you're not worried about losing the job, or it's
Hmm.
not like you're not in sales and the income isn't up and down and up and down, then
Mm.
you could probably rely on 3 months of expenses to get you by. If you're
Right.
working, I've got clients that make $40,000 a year and clients that make $500,000 a year,
Right.
and sometimes, I mean, they feel more comfortable having 6 months because the
Hmm.
$500,000 client, their sales are like up and down. So they feel a little bit more comfortable having the 6 month buffer.
Right. So, can you walk me through how you would rebalance a portfolio during market volatility?
Yeah. So, um, one of the guys that I went through his program, his name is
Mhm.
Dave Ramsey. Love him or hate him, he's helped 10 million
Right.
people to get out of debt
I
and to
heard
build
about that.
wealth.
Right.
So I often teach people of his philosophy. His
Mhm.
philosophy is you're investing in four different kind of groups of funds.
Okay.
So it's going to be growth,
Mhm.
growth in income,
Mhm.
aggressive growth, and international. Those are the different baskets that, and you can break that down if you want to do 25, 25, 25, 25%. That adds up to
Mhm.
100% of where you're invested. Then obviously, like every month or every year, depending on how often you want to do it, you can just go back and set up to 25%. But you got to
Right.
figure out what's the allocation that I want. Allocation is being a big word of like, where do you want to be invested? Do you want to
Right.
what and what's your level of risk? What's the
Completely.
tolerance that you have?
Right. What do you think about the crypto investments, like all the Bitcoins and all those coins? What do you think about those?
To me, it's fascinating. I've spent a lot of time researching
Mhm.
cryptocurrencies,
Right.
and just based on trends and where the world's heading,
Mhm.
it seems like there's going to be some level of demand for cryptocurrencies. Um, that being said, like I never advise people to buy just solely off of my recommendation. They always
Right.
need to do their own research.
Research.
But to me, it makes sense. Like you've got gold that has been around for the last thousands of years, and
Right.
if cryptocurrency is going to be kind of that digital gold, if everything's heading digital, seems like there might be a place in someone's portfolio depending on their levels of risk, all of that.
Right. So you said you lost something around like $100,000. So
Yeah.
what the most mistakes you did that you'd like to people not to repeat? So guide us through that as well.
Yeah, good question. So just not knowing. If I would have had me
Mm-hmm.
there to just say like, hey, that's not a wise decision,
Mm. Back
my
in
net
10 years
worth
ago
would
or
be
something.
my net worth would be an extra $250,000. I can guarantee it today because not
Okay.
only did I lose 100,000, but I lose the growth of that 100,000.
Right.
And so making dumb decisions is what I help what I don't do anymore and what I help my
Mhm.
clients to prevent making those same decisions. For
Right.
me, it was investing in options. Now, options are
Mm.
just like aggressive bets
Mm-hmm.
on the stock market. And for example, like a big one of them was Tesla. I
Right.
invested in Tesla. I was like, okay, by this date, I expect it to be this price.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? If it's not this price by this date, I lose basically all of my money.
Right.
And so Tesla went, and I don't know if this is going to be on video or just podcast, but
Mm-hmm.
Tesla went up, and then
Mm.
right there is where I made that bet, and then I
Mm-hmm.
was expecting it to keep going up. Well, it went way down, and I
Mm.
lost basically my entire investment. But
Okay.
then a couple months later, it
It
went
went
back
up.
up higher
Right.
than where it was. If I would have just
Right.
bought held, I would have been better off. But again, just
Right.
making just making dumb investments because I was trying to. I didn't know my level of risk. Um,
Mm.
that's what I help people to sort through today.
All right. That was amazing. So passive versus active investment. What do you lean towards and why?
Say it again.
Passive versus active investing. Which do you lean towards and why do you do that?
Oh man. Personally, I lean towards passive.
Passive, okay.
Over a 20-year period, you
Mm-hmm.
can look up active investing that 92% of people will underperform over
Mm.
a 20-year time period versus a
Really?
passive investment.
Okay. That's amazing. So, how do you help someone determining their risk tolerance and how does that shape their portfolio?
Yeah, so I think bringing my experiences to the table of
Mhm.
just realizing how much further I could be ahead had I not made some of the mistakes that I did when I didn't know my risk tolerance. Just bringing
Right,
my experiences to the table helps them to kind of connect the dots.
right,
Um, but I don't have any like assessment or anything that takes them on their level of risk.
right.
But it's something that each person needs to determine for themselves.
On the right, yeah. So, is there any book that you would recommend our audience to read? Like, I heard some books like Intelligent Investor or Rich Dad Poor Dad or Cash Flow Quadrant. Uh,
Those are all great recommendations. One of them, if they want to know, kind of get an idea of where to invest,
mhm.
there's a book out there by J.L. Collins, and it's called The
Okay.
Simple Path to Wealth.
All right.
And that's a great book. And one other book that I love is called The Psychology of Money,
Mm-hmm.
and that's written by Morgan Housel.
All right. So, what's the biggest misconception people have about retirement saving, like a 401k and a Roth IRA?
The biggest misconception. Well, I feel like there's maybe a couple different questions in there. So let's start with the biggest misconception of retirement. So many
Mm-hmm.
people think it's just like sitting on the beach drinking
Right,
margaritas. Like if that's what you want
right,
to do, great, but that's not what I want to do.
right.
I basically hit that level where it's like retirement or financial independence, and
Mm,
I've worked harder this last year than I ever have. And that's
right,
because my goal is to help as many people get on track with their finances as I can.
right.
I've actually
Mm-hmm.
worked harder. Uh, and so that's the biggest misconception is like, well, I don't want to retire. It's like, no, you get to do
Mm,
something. You get to choose what you want to do. You don't have to show up at your job. Now you get to go do
right,
what you absolutely love to do. And that's what I'm doing.
right.
Um, when it comes to 401k or an IRA,
Mm-hmm.
I would just say people they don't really understand what those are, how they can benefit
Mm-hmm.
them, and so just getting some clarity around that. Um, I don't have like one particular way where people struggle around those. Most people just like here's what I'll say
Mm-hmm.
with a 401k and an IRA. It's a two-part sequence. First off, you have to add money to your 401k or your IRA. But second off, the second part is the most important. You have to invest that money. Just because you add
Mm,
it to a 401k or an IRA does not necessarily mean it's invested. And
right.
I've heard horror stories of people who have contributed for 10, 20,
Right.
30 years into their 401k only to
Mm,
realize that it was never invested. They never completed
mm,
part two. And then
right.
if they invested, let's say 100 grand,
Mm,
it could have turned into $1 million after 30 years. But
right.
now that 100 grand is still 100 grand. And due to
Right.
inflation, it's more like 30 grand
Right. The
from
value is
what it
lesser.
was exactly. So yeah, people miss that second part. Like it not only has to be put into the 401k or an IRA, but it has to be invested into that as well.
That as well, right? So, how should someone approach healthcare cost in retirement, especially with rising medical expenses?
Into retirement. Well, there's another investment vehicle out there, an account called a health savings account. In order to
Hmm.
qualify for a health savings account, you need to be on a high deductible health plan.
Okay.
But the beauty of a health savings account, otherwise known as an HSA, is
Hmm.
that it's three-way tax advantage. You don't get
Hmm.
taxed on putting it in there, you don't get taxed on the growth, and you don't get taxed on taking it out, as
All
long as it's for
right.
medical expenses. Phenomenal tool, but again, you do have to have the health um, high deductible health plan, and
Right.
so that's one way. Um, Also, just seeing like what does my what does my employer cover?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're self-employed, like, are
Mm-hmm.
there other options? I mean, there's the health marketplace through the Affordable Care Act, which
Right.
might be going away in 2025. Nobody knows.
Hmm.
But there's a whole bunch of, we just had our first son, our first baby. It
Hmm.
was our son, and going through some of those health bills, like it's a pain. Like nobody likes
Right.
dealing with it.
Right.
Um, but yeah, and one other thing I would add to that
Mm-hmm.
is I go through a broker, a health insurance broker, and so they can compare all the different plans and they know, so I'm not having to reach out to these health insurance plans necessarily myself,
Mm-hmm.
but I have that connection where they know the ins and outs, the lingo of the market through my broker, and then they can help me to assess what I need to do next. So that's huge.
Right. Yeah, that's really nice way to deal with that. So, depth, depth snowball versus avalanche method. When you recommend one or other.
I walk people through the debt snowball 100% of the time. The
Okay.
avalanche method
Mm-hmm.
is the debt snowball method is where you're paying off the smallest balance first, and then you're
Mm-hmm.
paying off the next smallest. You get that one paid off, you're paying off the next one, and then the next one. The avalanche
Mm-hmm.
method is where you look at the interest rate. So the highest interest rate you pay off is usually credit cards, maybe payday
Okay.
loans if you have those.
Mm.
There's almost no difference in timeline when
Mm-hmm.
you pay it off. You're paying a
Okay.
little bit extra. The smartest way to go about it is using the avalanche method.
Mm.
But if money was all about the math,
Mm-hmm.
you wouldn't have ever gotten into debt in the first place. So
Right.
money is only 80% of its behavior. Only 20% is head knowledge. So we got to fix the
Mm.
behavior before we can get into the head knowledge.
Head
And when
knowledge.
you feel like, that's why I walk people through the debt snowball. Because like I said, there's
Mm.
almost no difference in doing it. Very, very little
Right.
difference. And so if they can get a couple of wins under their belt, like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I paid off this debt, and then you move on to the next
Right.
one. Hey, I paid off this debt. And it's like a month or 2 months or 3 months versus if you pay off the highest debt first, it could take you years depending on the debt.
Right. So, what strategies do you suggest for balancing debt repayment with investing?
I like the idea of, let me share with you. So I see debt
Mm-hmm.
as if you were to climb a mountain and you have debt,
Mm-hmm.
carrying that debt is the same as basically walking up that mountain, climbing that mountain with weights around your ankles. It's
Mm-hmm.
slowing you down. It's
Slowing you
holding you
down.
back. So
Right.
I like helping people to take off those
Wets.
those weights first
Mm.
off their ankles, and then they can climb freely. And what you do is, like, when you can pay off that debt, you free up the greatest wealth building tool, which is your income.
Right.
And so I like helping people to get off away from that debt. So the average person that I work with, they pay off like $5,000 of debt in their first
Mm.
6 months,
Okay.
and all of a sudden they feel lighter.
Right. So, for students who have education loan, then once they get like any normal job, what do you recommend them? Like, should they pay off their loan first, or they should start investing in their 401ks?
It's usually paying off that debt first.
That right, right,
Yeah, you'll
right.
have lots of time to invest.
Right.
And
So,
again, it's math. If you're looking at it mathematically, it might make sense to
right, yeah,
invest, but it's not always a math problem.
completely. It is behavioral problem. So, how do you help clients overcome their emotional spending or fear of investing?
Mm. I teach people more about value based spending.
Mhm.
I want to encourage people to spend more, right? Which is kind of counterintuitive. Like, you're thinking I
Mm,
would tell you to spend less. I want people to spend more on what
mhm.
they value
Right,
and spend less on what they don't value.
right,
And so I walk people through, like, is this a value? Is eating out, is that a value of yours? If
right.
so, let's
Or
keep it
even
there. If
just a
it's
cup
not,
of coffee will be like for value for some people, then yeah, that's okay, right?
is this Amazon purchase here? Is that a value, or
Right.
was it more of a retail therapy where it's like you were just looking to get a different feeling, um,
Right,
that you can only get through spending, right? So
right.
helping people to realize, like, what are your values and does our spending align with what you say you value?
Hmm. So can you share example of how automating finances transform clients' financial health?
In terms of health, Health
Financial health.
insurance?
Financial health. Like automating finances transformed clients' finances, complete financial thing.
How they automate their finances
Yeah,
to improve?
yeah.
Yeah, I would just say when you don't have to think about it and it's automatically being invested for you, or
Is it good way
say, for
to
example,
look at it?
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I personally, I love automating. It just makes
Hmm.
the stress of everyday life so much
Easier.
easier if you can automate, especially those investments where you're paying yourself first, whether it's your
Right.
401k, your HSA, your IRA. When if you
Right.
can pay yourself and automate those, so you don't even have to think about it. Because the
Hmm.
moment I have to think about, ooh, do I want to spend $500 this month towards my 401k, or do I want to buy some new clothes? Like emotionally, like I might want to buy some new clothes. Like it's time for an upgrade. But if you
Right.
just if you make that where it's non-negotiable, like
Hmm.
it doesn't matter, you're paying for your 401k because you will greatly benefit from that
Right.
when you're ready to take out
Ready. Completely.
30 years from now.
Completely right. So, what tax efficient investing strategies do you recommend for middle income versus high income earners?
Yeah, that boy, that's a great question. And it really does depend on your income. There's
Right.
not a one size fits all type strategy. And I wish I had more
Right.
time to get into that.
Hmm.
But basically, Roth isn't for everybody and traditional isn't for everybody. Roth
Mm.
is where you pay taxes up front on it, and
Mm.
traditional is where you're delaying taxes until later.
Mm.
It totally depends on where your income's at and the
Right.
tax bracket you're in. Because
Hmm.
what you're doing when you do a Roth is you're essentially locking in your tax bracket.
Right.
And it's not necessarily if you're in a 35% tax bracket, like the
Mm.
client that I have that's $500,000,
Hmm.
does it make sense to lock in 35% when likely he'll be
Hmm.
lower in the future? Maybe
Mm.
not. Just depends.
Right. So, how can someone leverage tax loss harvesting or charitable contributions to reduce liabilities?
Yeah, so loss harvesting is where you have a loss
Hmm.
in an investment
Hmm.
and you can get a tax deduction. So if I bought a stock and I put in $100 just for a really, really low number, put in $100 and now it's at 90 and I sell it.
Hmm.
That's a $10 loss that I can deduct from my taxes.
Okay.
And you can use that to offset some of your income.
Mm.
Usually
Okay.
if you got bigger numbers, like it makes sense to write off some of those taxes. And
Right.
then you could reinvest them
Hmm.
into a different vehicle that's similar
Mm. Okay.
and still be invested, but you get to write off that loss.
That's really awesome. So, renting versus buying a home. How do you advise clients to decide their decision?
Homes on paper are horrible investments. They do
Really?
help people to, yep, they do help people to build wealth over time.
Mm.
But on paper, they're horrible investments. So it it depends on what you're looking for. But if you look at
Mhm.
an amortization schedule, which just means how
Right.
much interest am I going to be paying throughout the
Mm.
throughout the course of the loan, the
Right.
majority of the interest is in that first decade or even 2 decades.
Mhm.
At the end, that's when you're really paying down the principal of your mortgage.
Right.
But the first probably 10 to 15 years is almost entirely, I mean, largely, I should say,
Mm.
interest payments.
Okay.
So it depends on how long you're going to live in the house.
Right. So, just like it is written in the book, I think Rich Dad Poor Dad, he emphasizes more on like buying a home when you're like below 30, it is just a liability to have. So, your thoughts align with that, right?
Well, unless your house is actually paying you, people like
Right.
Robert Kiyosaki are going to say it's not an asset, it's a liability.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
assets are things that pay you,
That fair, yeah.
liabilities are things that
You
you're
have to
paying
pay for.
into.
Right.
So you've got in a house, you've got to factor in expenses being the mortgage interest that you pay on it, the maintenance and repairs, property taxes, home
Right.
insurance. All of those
Mm.
are things that most people do not factor in going into it, and they'll eat up your budget if you let it.
Right. So, how should someone approach financing large purchases like a car or education?
How should people approach what?
Financing large purchases like getting really like expensive car or
Hmm.
buying really expensive thing like home or something.
Yeah, if you're saving up for a large purchase, you just gotta uh, factor in how much is it going to take monthly to save
Mm.
that, and just set a goal. Set a goal. I would say one of the things that I walk through my clients with is actually setting goals and putting them on paper. Because when you put them on paper, you're 42% more likely to achieve them. And
Really?
most
Okay.
people miss that. Most people miss that.
Mm.
But so you actually put your goal on paper, and
Hmm.
then if you're saving up $100,000, then you gotta know how much is that per month, and how long is it going to take me to hit that 100 grand,
Right.
and then just
So,
stick to it.
right. So rather than taking loan, saving up to the thing and buying with your own money, that will be what you will recommend to people, right? More.
Yep, just
Right.
setting a goal and sticking to it.
Right. So, what are the pros and cons of investing in REITs versus physical real estate?
Hmm. I've this is not my area of expertise, I will say by any means, but more of a passive investment is going to be or is going to be your REITs,
Go to right. Okay.
REITs,
Right.
and whereas rentals and whatnot, that's going to be more of an active investment because you're going to have to manage it. You're going to have to get renters in there. Um,
Hmm.
so if you're looking to have a stake in real estate but not necessarily manage it yourself,
Hmm.
then REITs might be more of the path for you.
Right. What's your advice for negotiating salary raises or transitioning into the higher paying industries?
Read some books, and I don't say that lightly. Um,
Right.
Reading has gotten me to where I am today, but you've got to make
Mm.
yourself more knowledgeable. You've got to make yourself more of an asset, and by reading certain books, like one of them that I've read recently is called "Be" or "So Good That They Can't Ignore You," and I think it was by
Mm.
Cal Newport.
Okay.
And that's a book that it just talks about making yourself more valuable. If you can make yourself
Right.
more valuable, then eventually people are going to see it, and then
Right.
you'll be rewarded because of it. But there's like Ramit Sethi has some
Mhm.
articles too about how can you negotiate salary. Chris Voss is another one who has
Right.
articles out there that share with you negotiation strategies, but a lot of it just comes down to making yourself more valuable.
Right. So, what's the most surprising success story you have been came across through the client,
Through the what?
through your client?
Through my clients.
Yeah.
So I've got a couple
Hmm.
who they paid off $25,000 in debt so far.
Hmm.
The the biggest win though that they told me they've got from working with me
Right.
and doing financial coaching has
That's
not been
awesome.
that they paid off 25,000. It's
Hmm.
actually that their marriage has improved, their communication in their marriage. Because when you can start to get on track with money, money's the number one
Hmm.
reason for divorce. If you can
Completely.
start
I agree with that.
to win with money,
Hmm.
and actually talk about like how do we create a plan, all of a
Hmm.
sudden that starts to translate into your marriage, changes
Right.
everything. So,
Right.
and now I think that couple, I'm meeting with them tonight. I
Hmm.
think they're actually closer to almost $100,000 in debt paid off. It's like 75 to
That's
100.
that's
So
really awesome.
it's been phenomenal.
Right. So, how do you stay updated with all like new things in financial strategies and regulations?
I'm still trying to figure that out myself. Just trying to follow the right people
Hmm.
who are also staying on top of that. If you can get like a network of people that maybe
Hmm.
you don't even know them, but they're
Right.
always researching and learning too, and they're staying up to
Hmm.
date and putting out content, that's what I try to do. Information
Right.
is everywhere.
Everywhere.
I don't, people don't come to me to buy information. You can buy information everywhere. People come to me to
Right.
buy transformation.
Right. So, what books, podcasts, or tools you consistently recommend people to keep their knowledge updated?
That one book by Morgan Housel, The
Right.
Psychology of Money, is
Mm-hmm.
one of them. There's another book out there called Set for Life by Scott Trench, and that's
Okay.
a financial independence blueprint. That's
Mm-hmm.
phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Longer read, but really, really good stuff in there. And
Mm-hmm.
then podcast, I probably got 10 to 15 podcasts that I listen to on repeat.
Really?
And so there's podcasts everywhere. I mean, you can just find a good one that you love, stick to it,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I've done.
So that's all. So, do you guide people with the trading part of the market, like investing or trading? So, how do you get into the day trading, and what's the process is like?
Day trading is something where I don't know the exact stat off my head, but
Hmm.
95% of people lose money day trading. That's how I
Right.
lost a lot of money. So
Okay.
if you're looking to build wealth,
Mm-hmm.
I usually don't go with day trading.
Day
If you're
trading,
looking to lose a bunch of money and have
right?
fun for a
Right.
minute and then be depressed for a long time, go day
Right.
trading.
Right. Okay. So, just the long term, like
Buy and hold.
investments and yeah, passive investment, that's the way to go, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, can you elaborate how your strategy worked? Like, you lost a bunch of money, you day traded, then you learned something new every day. So, how it looked for you, like last couple of years?
Yeah. Basically just what we've talked about, like just being
Right.
consistent,
Being consistent,
investing
that's the
consistently,
right.
whether you feel like it or not, investing consistent.
So that's the magic behind all of it.
It's simple, it's boring, and it's made me and my
Right.
wife a lot of money.
That's amazing. So yeah, I think that's all questions I had for you for for now. It was really amazing talking with you. Thank you for your time. And yeah,
Same too.
I think I'd like to talk with you some other time if you got time, other time. That will be really
Sounds
awesome because I learned a
sounds
lot of new things today, and that was really awesome.
good. I hope the rest of your listeners can learn a lot as well. And if they
For
ever have
sure.
any questions, they can feel more than free to reach out. I'll send you links on how they can connect with me. So
For
yeah,
sure, for
that's
sure.
great.
Yeah. So that will be really awesome. I'll be adding the links to how to connect with you in the description. And yeah, that's all for today. I
All
think, yeah.
right.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
We'll see you later.
See you
Bye.
later. Bye.